There is a moment in everyone's life when the heart breaks so deeply that it feels as if the world has collapsed inward. A moment when silence becomes heavy, breath becomes sharp, and the mind keeps asking the same question: why did this happen to me? But the truth is this: heartbreak is not the end of your strength. It is the beginning of it. Heartbreak is often experienced as a collapse, a sudden tearing of the emotional fabric that once felt secure. But when you look deeper, you begin to understand that heartbreak is not simply an emotional event. It is a mirror that reflects your inner world with sharp clarity. It exposes what you have been avoiding, hiding, or suppressing within yourself. When everything feels peaceful, comfortable, and stable, the mind does not question. It does not examine. It simply moves through life following patterns that may not serve you anymore. But the moment something breaks, especially the heart, your awareness is forced to expand. Heartbreak reveals what you were attached to, and this is one of its greatest teachings. Many times, we attach to people, to relationships, or to expectations without realizing how deeply they shape our emotional identity. You might believe you were in love with someone, but the heartbreak shows you that perhaps you were attached to the idea of them. You might think you were hurt because they left, but heartbreak reveals that what truly hurts is how much of yourself you had given away. It shines a light on your fears, the fear of being alone, the fear of being unwanted, the fear of not being enough. These fears hide quietly during comfort, but during heartbreak, they step forward, demanding to be acknowledged. This pain becomes a form of emotional training, teaching you where your weaknesses are. Not weaknesses in terms of flaws, but weaknesses in terms of imbalance. Places where you relied too much on someone else for validation, security, or happiness. Heartbreak teaches you where your boundaries were too open, where your expectations were unrealistic, and where your emotional strength needs to grow. It forces you to see the difference between love and dependency. Many believe they are giving love when they are actually giving themselves away. Heartbreak brings that truth to the surface, sharply and undeniably. It also reveals your patterns. Perhaps you have repeated the same emotional mistakes for years. Choosing people who do not value you, accepting behavior that harms you, ignoring your intuition because you feared losing someone. During heartbreak, these patterns become visible. You suddenly understand what you tolerated, what you ignored, and what you pretended not to see. Pain has a way of removing illusions. It strips away the stories you created about another person and shows you the reality you refuse to acknowledge. Most importantly, heartbreak shows you your emotional capacity. You discover how deeply you can feel, how committed you can be, and how loyal your heart truly is. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths that simply need better direction. Heartbreak teaches you that your ability to love is not the problem. Your ability to choose who receives that love is what must be refined. When the heart breaks, you gain access to a level of self-awareness that comfort could never unlock. Through pain, you learn what you value, what you need, and what kind of love aligns with your growth. Heartbreak becomes a teacher because it forces you to confront yourself. Not the version you show the world, but the version that lives quietly inside, waiting to be understood. Pain has a way of entering your life unexpectedly, almost like an uninvited visitor that refuses to leave until its message is understood. When the heart breaks, It feels as if something precious inside you has shattered. But the truth is that heartbreak is not meant to destroy you, it is meant to open you. Pain creates cracks in the emotional walls you built around yourself, walls formed from fear, pride, or past experiences. When these walls break, light enters, light in the form of clarity, self-awareness, and emotional depth. This opening is uncomfortable, but it is also necessary. Without it, you would continue living inside a limited version of yourself. Many people believe vulnerability is weakness, but heartbreak reveals that vulnerability is actually access to your deepest truths, your capacity to feel, and your ability to connect with yourself on a more honest level. When your heart breaks, you experience emotions you often try to avoid: sadness, disappointment, loneliness, confusion. These feelings may seem heavy, but they serve a purpose. They push you to explore who you are beneath the surface. They help you understand your emotional limits and your emotional potential. Pain opens a space where you can witness your inner world without filters. Heartbreak also opens your awareness to the illusions you once lived in. When you love someone, you often create stories about who they are, what the relationship means, and what the future will look like. You fill the spaces with hope and imagination. When the relationship ends, those stories collapse. This collapse is painful because it forces you to see reality without the comfort of fantasies. But in this new clarity, you discover truths you never saw before. You start recognizing the red flags you ignored, the compromises you made that weakened your self-respect, and the effort you gave that was never reciprocated. This clarity is not pleasant, but it is powerful. As the heart opens through pain, your emotional intelligence deepens. You become more aware of your needs and boundaries. You learn how you respond to loss, how you process disappointment, and how you rebuild after falling. These observations help you understand yourself in ways you never considered before. A heartbreak teaches you that emotions are not enemies, they are guides. They point to what matters, what hurts, what heals, and what must change. Pain expands your emotional capacity, allowing you to feel more deeply and understand yourself more concretely. When the heart opens, compassion naturally grows. Not just compassion for others, but compassion for yourself. You begin to see how fragile you can be, and in that fragility, you discover strength. You realize that being able to feel deeply is not a burden. It is a gift. It means your heart is alive, responsive, capable of love. Pain may stretch your heart, but in stretching it, it increases your capacity to feel love, understanding, and connection in more mature and meaningful ways. Through heartbreak, your heart opens to a new kind of wisdom, one that comfort can never teach. It opens your eyes, your awareness, and your understanding of yourself. The pain softens the hardness within you, making space for growth, self-love, and emotional mastery. Pain becomes the doorway through which light enters your life, revealing a deeper, more authentic version of who you are. Loss is often experienced as something being taken away from you. A person, a connection, a future you imagined. But heartbreak reveals a deeper truth. Sometimes what you think you lost was actually something that was limiting you. When a relationship ends, it feels like a part of your world has been removed. But with time and awareness, you begin to see that what truly disappeared was not your life, but the version of yourself that relied too heavily on someone else. This is where loss transforms into liberation. When someone leaves or a relationship falls apart, a specific identity you built around that connection also dissolves. You no longer act from the role of a partner, a caretaker, or an emotional supporter. You are suddenly left alone with yourself, without the structure that used to define your daily emotional experience. This can feel terrifying at first, because the mind becomes attached not only to people, but to roles, routines, and emotional habits. Yet this emptiness creates a space where you can rediscover parts of yourself that have been silent for too long. Many people unknowingly shrink in relationships. They adjust their behavior, silence their needs, and compromise their values just to maintain peace or avoid conflict. They lose their individuality without even noticing. When heartbreak removes the relationship, it also removes these self-imposed limitations. You begin to recognize how much of your personality was muted, how much energy you invested in someone who did not invest the same, and how much of your potential went unexplored while you were busy trying to hold something together. This recognition is painful, but it is also freeing. You gain back pieces of yourself that you had forgotten. Loss also cuts the emotional attachments that kept you tied to the past. Attachment is not the same as love. Attachment is fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of not finding someone else. When these attachments break, the fear begins to dissolve. You start to realize that your worth did not decrease just because someone walked away. Your identity is not defined by who stays or leaves. You begin to rely on yourself again, emotionally and mentally. This shift from external dependence to internal grounding is one of the most powerful forms of liberation. Heartbreak also frees you from illusions. You stop holding onto fantasies about what the relationship could have been. You see the truth without emotional filters. Maybe the person was not capable of loving you with the depth you offered. Maybe they were inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or simply not aligned with your values. But during the relationship, your attachment blurred your vision. Losing them removes the blur. You understand the reality clearly, and with clarity comes freedom. The freedom to choose better for yourself in the future. Even loneliness, which often follows heartbreak, becomes a form of liberation. When you sit with your own company, you begin to understand your inner world. You reconnect with your interests, your passions, your ambitions. You discover strength in solitude, a strength that makes you independent rather than isolated. This independence is not cold or distant. It is empowered. It is the kind of independence that allows you to enter future relationships not from need, but from wholeness. Loss, when viewed through the right lens, becomes liberation from emotional dependence, unrealistic expectations, and self-limiting beliefs. It frees you from the person you were forced to become and creates space for the person you are meant to be. Acceptance is one of the most difficult emotional skills to develop, especially when your heart is breaking. The mind naturally resists reality because it wants to protect you. It wants to rewrite the past, fix what went wrong, or imagine different outcomes. It wants answers, explanations, and closure that may never come. This resistance fuels suffering. You replay conversations, analyze moments, and try to understand why things unfolded the way they did. But acceptance is not about agreeing with what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. Acceptance means recognizing that what happened has already become part of your life, and no amount of mental struggle can change it. When you stop fighting reality, something shifts inside you. Instead of exhausting your energy trying to change the unchangeable, you begin to reclaim your power. Pain becomes more manageable. Your mind becomes quieter. You begin to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. This clarity is essential because emotional healing starts only when you stop resisting the truth. Without acceptance, you remain stuck in a loop, reliving the past, bargaining with memories, and waiting for someone or something to undo your pain. With acceptance, you step out of that loop and into the present moment, where genuine transformation can begin. Acceptance also teaches you emotional humility. It reminds you that you cannot control everything. Not people, not relationships, not their choices, and not their feelings. The heart often wants to hold on, but life moves with its own rhythm. When you accept this, you stop forcing situations to stay alive when they are already over. You stop begging for clarity from those who do not wish to give it. You stop waiting for someone to return in order to feel whole again. Acceptance gently removes the illusion of control and replaces it with understanding. It allows you to meet reality without resistance. It also brings an inner stillness that allows you to see the deeper lessons hidden within your heartbreak. Instead of focusing on what you lost, you begin to notice what the situation is revealing about you. Maybe you realize you gave too much without receiving enough. Maybe you learn that ignoring red flags only delays the inevitable. Maybe you discover patterns you have carried from past relationships. Acceptance doesn't erase the pain, but it gives meaning to it. It allows you to process your emotions instead of being overwhelmed by them. Another powerful aspect of acceptance is emotional responsibility. You stop expecting the person who hurt you to come back and heal you. You stop depending on someone else to provide closure. You understand that the responsibility to rebuild your heart belongs to you. This shift is empowering. It teaches you that your healing is not in anyone else's hands. You take ownership of your feelings, your growth, and your future. Acceptance also opens the door to emotional freedom. When you stop resisting what is, you stop giving energy to what no longer exists. You break the emotional chains that tie you to the past. You create space for new experiences, new relationships, and new versions of yourself. Resistance keeps you stuck, but acceptance allows you to move again, to breathe again. It becomes the first step toward inner transformation, the point where healing begins to flow naturally and you start reconnecting with your true strength. Strength is not formed in moments of comfort. It is built when life places you in situations that test your limits, stretch your emotions, and challenge your beliefs. Heartbreak is one of those situations. When someone you cared for deeply walks away, or when a relationship collapses, the emotional shock forces you into a kind of inner battle. In this battle, you confront loneliness, abandonment, rejection, confusion, and uncertainty all at once. These experiences feel overwhelming, but they are precisely the moments where your emotional endurance is forged. Discomfort becomes the training ground where your strength is shaped, sharpened, and strengthened. During heartbreak, nothing feels stable. Your routines feel disrupted. Your emotions swing unpredictably, and your mind constantly searches for answers. This lack of stability pushes you out of your emotional comfort zone. It demands that you stand on your own inner foundation, even if that foundation feels shaky at first. This struggle is uncomfortable, But in that discomfort, you begin to understand yourself more deeply. You start to discover what you rely on for emotional safety, what you fear losing, and what you need to rebuild. These realizations are painful, but they are also essential tools for inner strength. Emotional discomfort also teaches you resilience. When your heart is broken, you are forced to confront feelings you normally avoid. Silence, solitude, sadness, vulnerability. These emotions feel heavy, but they help you grow. By sitting with them instead of running away, you learn that emotions do not have the power to destroy you. They rise, fall, and eventually settle. The more you face your emotional storms, the more capable you become of navigating them. Each wave of pain teaches you that you can endure more than you believed. This endurance slowly transforms into resilience, a quiet strength that stays with you long after the heartbreak has passed. This discomfort also shapes your boundaries. When someone hurts you deeply, you begin to understand the importance of protecting your emotional space. You learn what behavior is unacceptable, what actions drain your energy, and what kind of connections weaken your spirit. You recognize how easily you compromised your values in the past and how much better you must guard your peace in the future. These realizations would never come through comfort. They arise only when pain exposes the imbalance. Through heartbreak, you begin to build boundaries not from fear, but from self-respect. Another crucial way discomfort builds strength is by sharpening your clarity. Pain forces you to reflect, reassess, and rethink your choices. It pushes you to question the relationships you choose, the people you trust, and the love you accept. This reflection helps you see your emotional patterns clearly. You learn what kind of love nourishes you and what kind of love weakens you. You start to understand that the heart must be protected, not by walls, but by wisdom. This wisdom is forged through discomfort. Discomfort also helps you develop emotional independence. When the person you depended on emotionally is no longer present, you must learn how to support yourself. You begin to rely on your own validation, your own comfort, and your own strength. You discover that you are capable of rebuilding your life without depending on someone else to hold you together. This independence is powerful. It gives you confidence in your ability to face the world alone, if needed. And once you develop that inner confidence, no relationship can control you, and no heartbreak can destroy you. Heartbreak forces you through discomfort, but this discomfort becomes the path through which you develop resilience, clarity, boundaries, independence, and emotional depth. Through these challenges, your heart becomes stronger, not by avoiding pain, but by learning to rise through it. When you rise from heartbreak, something fundamental shifts inside you. You no longer move through life with the same emotional naivety, the same unconscious patterns, or the same dependence that once guided your decisions. Instead, you begin to carry yourself with a new kind of strength, one that grows from the pain you survived. This strength doesn't come suddenly. It forms slowly through reflection, endurance, and self-discovery. Over time, you realize that your heartbreak has become a source of power, not because the pain disappears, but because you learn how to transform it. One of the first signs of this transformation is the change in your emotional priorities. Before heartbreak, you may have given your energy easily, offering your time, your attention, your loyalty, and your heart without questioning whether the other person deserved it. But once you have suffered deeply, you become more mindful. You start valuing your emotional space. You stop giving yourself away to people who cannot handle the depth of your love. This shift isn't coldness. It is maturity. You learn that your heart is precious and not everyone is meant to have access to it. You also develop a sharper sense of intuition. After going through emotional pain, your awareness becomes more refined. You notice behaviors you once ignored. You sense imbalances early. You recognize when someone's words do not match their actions. This intuitive clarity protects you from repeating the same mistakes. You no longer fall for potential. You pay attention to reality. You stop chasing what is not aligned. You start choosing connections that honor your peace, not disrupt it. Heartbreak also gives you self-respect that cannot be shaken. When you survive emotional devastation, you learn that your worth does not depend on who stays or leaves. You discover that you can stand alone, that you can rebuild, that you can rise again, even when everything feels lost. This inner validation makes you stronger than before. You stop begging for attention, for closure, for reciprocity. You stop accepting love that comes with conditions or inconsistency. You learn that walking away is also an act of strength. Another powerful transformation is emotional discipline. You begin to control your reactions. You stop allowing your emotions to be dictated by someone else's actions. You respond with calm instead of desperation. You choose silence instead of arguments that drain your energy. You protect your peace by removing yourself from situations where your heart was once easily manipulated. This discipline doesn't come from pride. It comes from experience. Pain teaches you to manage yourself better than anyone else could. The most profound part of this transformation is the inner shift from fear to clarity. Before heartbreak, fear often guided your choices. The fear of losing someone, the fear of being rejected, the fear of not being enough. After heartbreak, clarity becomes your guide. You start living with a stronger connection to your values, your needs, and your boundaries. You stop settling because you finally understand what kind of love you deserve. You realize that losing someone is not the worst thing. Losing yourself is. With time, heartbreak becomes power because it exposes who you were, who you are, and who you are capable of becoming. It shows you your resilience, your emotional depth, your capacity to rebuild, and your ability to rise with a stronger heart and a clearer mind. The version of you that emerges after heartbreak is wiser, calmer, more grounded, and more connected to your true self. Because pain has refined you into someone stronger than before. Heartbreak may enter your life as a storm, tearing through everything you once believed was stable, but it leaves you with something far more valuable than what it took. It leaves you with yourself, your clarity, your strength, your awareness, and your renewed sense of identity. Through the pain, you discover the kind of resilience that cannot be learned in peaceful moments. Through the loss, you uncover the parts of yourself that were waiting to grow. And through the emotional darkness, you find a deeper light within you, a light that was dimmed by fear, attachment, and old versions of yourself. You rise not because the heartbreak disappears, but because you refuse to remain broken. You rise because the pain revealed who you must become. When your heart breaks, it creates an opening for transformation, a space for wisdom, and a pathway to a stronger, more grounded version of you. What once felt like the end becomes the beginning of a new chapter. one written with more self-respect, more clarity, and more purpose. The power you gain from heartbreak is not loud. It is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It shows in the way you choose yourself, in the way you protect your peace, in the way you recognize your worth. It shows in the strength of your boundaries, the calmness of your decisions, and the confidence with which you walk forward. Heartbreak reshapes you, not into someone hardened, but into someone awakened. Someone who understands that pain is not the enemy, but the teacher. So when you look back at the moment your heart shattered, you no longer see it as a point of collapse. You see it as the turning point where your true strength began. Your heartbreak did not weaken you. It revealed you. It uncovered your discipline, your depth, your courage, and your capacity to rise. And in that rising, you discover that the pain that once felt unbearable has become the power that now carries you forward.